Thank you. It's a very great pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Different slant and different approach from me, with acknowledgement to my colleagues Lucy and Afina. It's a very great pleasure to be with you and to share some of the things we've done on our PGCE programme in secondary mathematics, training the secondary mathematics teachers of the future who would teach your students before they come onto university. So it's really important in terms of developing new young mathematicians. From our course that today our Ofsted inspection report was released, so this hot off the press in the last couple of hours, is that we've been graded outstanding across all categories. So we're really pleased to have what we across the whole of our secondary and primary programmes at Southampton do recognised in that way. It's also a great pleasure to be to have an ex-student in the virtual room, so who emailed me this morning, who's now a lecturer at another university. He did his PGCE with us a few years ago, and also Francis, who used to mentor for us when he was a secondary school mathematics teacher. And there are other names as well I recognise. One of the lovely things about Southampton is that we're developing what's currently now kind of quite an informal group of lecturers from the School of Education who are interested in mathematics and mathematics learning, and also who were starting to connect with and work with lecturers in the mathematics school who are interested particularly in education and student learning. So it's nice to really have a group that where there's crossover between the two schools. What I'm going to do is just very, very briefly introduce the programme I work on, and then share some of the things we do. So for those who are not familiar, a postgraduate certificate in education, PGCE, is the main route for pre-service secondary teachers in England. There are various routes and models and all sorts of different ways, but the ones we work with, at least two-thirds of the time is spent on school placement. So for much of the year, one day a week is spent in the university, and the rest of the time is spent on school placement, on teaching practice. And it's a programme that's really, PGCE programmes in England, really highly regulated. We work within the Ofsted framework. We're inspected externally, as I've just said. Our trainee teachers have to meet something called the teacher standards from the Department for Education in England, and also there's something called the CCF, which is the core content framework, which prescribes what we are required to cover. So we work within quite a potentially restrictive set of demands. And what, in a sense, I suppose we're doing is we're teaching people about teaching. So that's our job. And some of the things that underpin, and I think there's some nice links between some of these and what Carol was talking about. Some of our pedagogic principles are about these kinds of things, and particularly things about linking theory and practice. And usually in teacher education, theory is considered anything that isn't practical in schools. So what you learn in university is considered theoretical. And then there is kind of this theoretical, that's theory that's more than that, because it's learning theory or it's academic research. Developing criticality and reflection are really essential for us and our work. And also the way we work with them, our PGCE students, goes across these kind of 4 areas of research, practical, professional, and subject knowledge. So our students come in with good subject knowledge. Okay, so they'll have a maths degree or an engineering degree, or they'll have had to do some extra work before they start. And we're working across in a kind of workshop, very hands-on, very interactive way. That, it's difficult not to participate, and they're expected to take their turn. And that's where some of the modelling aspects come in, linking also research and what we know about children learning mathematics and approaches and understanding about learning, but with practical classroom skills, as well as the professional literature and the curriculum expectations and what's happening nationally in mathematics and GCSE exam boards and those kinds of things, and linking all those things together. So that's some of the ways we kind of start working on the programme. I'm just going to take this session, next few minutes, to share some of the kinds of things we do, and I hope they'll give you some ideas about, give you an insight into the way we work with our students. And I fully admit that I almost never, I've worked at Southampton for more than 20 years, something like 22, 23 years, and I have possibly lectured 3 times to a large lecture theatre. I don't lecture, I don't work in a lecture theatre, I work in a highly interactive way, and that's how we work on the PGCE. So I work in a classroom. So I also work on other programmes, but not much by way of a lecture. So what you're seeing now is an example of one of the ways that we work in partnership, and we co-create, and we empower students, and we work with them to on their progress throughout the course. And this is an example of linking theory and practice through one of their assignments. And this is the planning document we give them, and it's come out of an Erasmus Plus project we had with universities in Poland, the Netherlands and Germany. And what you'll see is, if you start at the top right, it says area of interest from assignment 1. So they do a literature review, they do some reading, and they pick something they're interested in. We give them a start with that. And so actually it's very much driven by what they're interested in. And then they pick out some ideas from the literature about what they may like to try, and they build that into a short activity, a short what we call an intervention. So they try something out, and they think about the types of evidence they need to collect to find out about their questions. So it might be about a particular teaching technique. It might be about children's misconceptions about, teaching fractions, for instance. And then they plan what they're going to do, what they're going to try in their classroom, and then they go away, they try that out, and they then write it up as their first assignment. And it's really important, because it's about evidence, collecting their own evidence, using the evidence from the research and professional literature, and critiquing and reflection, and engaging in that process. A lot of what we do is really about co-creating things on the programme. So we use our VLE Blackboard at Southampton, so we use the Blackboard Journal. We do a lot of evaluation feedback during the programme. We audit and subject target setting with both subject knowledge and the use of digital technologies. So this is an example of the Blackboard Journal, which is a piece of standard feature. So you can see this student has uploaded something, his target setting, which he does fortnightly in school. He uploads it. His mentor he's worked on it with his school mentor. He's put it up for his university tutor to see, and the university tutor's written a little note back. So she said at the bottom, I don't think you can see it, she says, are there some teachers that you can observe to help you develop your range of non-verbal cues for the low-level disruption? So actually, what they're doing is uploading this stuff really frequently. They upload a lesson, their lesson observations and so forth, and we can have dialogue, and that dialogue feeds into sessions. So if we notice 3 or 4 of them are coming back with the same feedback, we can weave that into our sessions. So we it's very developmental, the way we work with our students. This is a picture because our students have to appear in any presentation we do about them. This is some of our group of students at a local sixth form college. It became evident that they really wanted they told us they really wanted some experience post-16. A lot of the schools If you're local, you'll know that many of the schools in Hampshire, almost all of them are 11 to 16. And these are good mathematicians. They want that experience and know what it's like teaching post 16. So we took them into a local sixth form college for the day. They worked with a head of maths, who's an ex-student of mine. And then they went and observed lessons. So that's, one way we tweak the course. It's really successful. One of them ended up being offered a job. So we'll do that again next year and take them in and give them that experience. We also, one of the things we know about from the research of Neville Davis's work is that statistics is poorly taught in schools and it's poorly covered on PGCE programs. And we know that there are trouble even with simple statistics. So you might have a wry laugh at this example from the BBC website, which is not great. I have to say it's a particularly poor infographic about the football results, but I kind of put it in here as a reminder to say statistics is poorly taught in schools, poorly understood by our students. It's often their weakest area of the curriculum, poorly covered in PGCE courses. Generally, we know that, and it's something that we're really privileged to have Athena working with us because it's an area she's particularly strong out with a lot of experience in. And so it's one of the few workplaces where we really specifically target subject knowledge in response to their needs. So they tell us which parts of the GCSE statistics they need support with, and we run additional optional support for them, as well as the more usual sessions we would support them with in terms of how do you teach statistics. Some of the other things we work on are things about rehearsing classroom techniques. These are people who are going to be teachers, so we do a range of things. So they have to make little videos of explanations of them teaching. We started that during lockdown, went really well. We now still do it afterwards, even though almost all of our teaching is now in person. They make these videos, they share them. They have to watch each other and then make comments on a Blackboard discussion. You can't really see this, but actually what they're doing is they're making really reflective, thoughtful, professional conversations about each other's presentations. So the bottom one says, I really liked your friendly tone throughout. Your use of highlighter to make certain things clearer and a good use of different colours was helpful. And then later on he goes on to, and he said, you had a no faff attitude, which made your mistake funny, not a disaster, and your pace was good, and then and then the bottom, very bottom, the student writing to the other student says, I thought your presentation was a little busy, and then add some advice. So actually they're responding and critiquing and doing it thoughtfully and doing it professionally and, encouraged to respond and support one another. And it helps to build a community, which is great, and really they value. And this is from the National Centre for Excellence in the Teaching of Mathematics. It's for Year 7. It's an example from some materials they have developed for schools post-COVID. And we share these with our trainee teachers. We model how to use them, how to adapt them. So one of us will stand up and demonstrate and discuss it. And then they pick they have guided choice to pick one to do at the beginning of a university session. When I say session, we have them for the whole day. So it could be anything from an hour to much longer, depending on the topic. And they do that. The remainder of the group act as Year 7 pupils in terms of response. Hopefully not in terms of behaviour sometimes, and then we critique it and we look at how they've adapted and we have some brief critique, and that's worked really well. We're responding to the National Centre set, a very big programme funded by the Department for Education and many schools use these materials. So it's us responding to the professional need, but actually allowing students a safe space to explore and participate, and they have to do that. You can't sit in the corner on a PGCE programme. you're not going to be a good teacher if you sit in the corner. So they have to participate, but they do this in a supported way, and we build it up. We also support them in learning how to do group work. So this is our students on campus doing various things. And it's all mathematics. Some about ratio and proportion, some it's about circle theorems, some it's about some geometrical aspects of the shape and space curriculum at Key Stage 4. But all of what we do follows these general principles. We learn from our students. So we ask them to bring in ideas they've tried, and sometimes they bring in things and we think we really like that, and then we use it in a session. But we work in layers. And I think that's the way I would describe it. So school pupils face transitions, primary to secondary to college to university. Our students face transition from university to PGCE to work. And actually, we give them space and specific support with reflecting, so that they can apply their own experiences through transition to their work as teachers, so they understand themselves, but actually gives them an insight into what pupils are going through. And so we always work in these kinds of layers, where we connect the research, the theory, the practice, the professional expectations, the professional guidance from the grey literature, along with their subject knowledge, and everything works. The way we demonstrate our teaching, if they talk in my session, I will demonstrate how I would manage that with a class in practice. So I might do something, so I'll do something and then I'll explain why I'm doing it. Those kinds of things. Or I'll set up an example, but it deliberately with some potholes in it, so that we can unpick what happened. So those are the kinds of things we've done, which we think are being very, very successful in a context where we have different kinds of cohorts every year, different sizes, different demographics, different balances of experience. So we're always having to adapt and change. And I think that's what's probably kept me doing this for more than 20 years. So I hope there are some things in there that firstly link to what Carol was talking about, but secondly, give you some connections to some of the things you do, even though I'm talking about a different level of mathematics and a different kind of program to the vast majority of the ones the rest of you work on. So thank you very much.